Hey, it's Doug with Backcountry Pilgrim. Today I am talking about why my daughter is in the Boy Scouts. Behind me, the Boy Scouts are meeting, and so is my daughter. Is this the Boy Scouts going woke? Have they given in to liberal politics? That is what I used to think. But then I found out the truth, and you're going to find out what that is right now. So why don't we start off if you can just tell me your name and kind of give me your scout credentials.
I grew up in scouting. I got my Eagle Scout in 1999. I have an Eagle Scout for a son. I was a Cub Master for 5 years. We founded a girls troop, been spread across 3 units for the last 10 years as an adult leader. So I've been around scouting quite a bit.
Would you identify as a woke scout?
No, I would not identify as a woke scout.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So the main thing we're kind of talking about here is the inclusion of girls in the Boy Scouts. Now, when this first happened a few years back, it seemed like a lot of the news was coming out, social media was basically making it sound like, oh, the Boy Scouts have gone woke. It's an attack on manhood and all these kinds of things. And I honestly kind of bought into that for a while. I didn't know anything about scouting. To me, it just sounded like another one of these news stories of some other company, oh, girls can be boys now and boys can be girls or whatever. I think it was just bad timing.
Yeah.
But talking to you and, getting online and actually reading actual scouting materials, I realized that was not the case at all. And I was very impressed with the whole point behind it. I didn't realize that there were actually more scouting programs under Boy Scouts of America that have been co-ed for quite a while.
Yeah, and actually the new name is going to be Scouting America. That's going to be the new name. So it was Boy Scouts of America, now it's going to be Scouting America. And essentially, Boy Scouts of America was like the national umbrella, and then underneath that there were 5 different organizations, sub-organizations. So you had Cub Scouts, you had Boy Scouts, which is now Scouts BSA, and then you had Venturing Scouts, Explorer Scouts, and Sea Scouts. So 3 of those 5 branches, Sea Scouts, Venturing, and Explorer Scouts, have been co-ed for decades. So the only 2 that were exclusively for boys were Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, which again is now Scouts BSA. So in 2019, they started to allow girls to participate in the program.
So scouting is all over the world. How does the current makeup kind of reflect scouting in other countries?
It's interesting. So other countries have been co-ed for decades as well. Yeah. So I had a friend of mine who went to an international scouting event back in the 80s, and he was surprised at that point, even in the 80s, that there were only 2 or 3 countries that were not co-ed: Saudi Arabia, Libya, and like the United States of America.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not good company to be in when it comes.
Right. So, and the United States generally, feels like, or they like to think that they're progressive, or we're kind of progressive when it comes to like leading things and leading the charge on leadership and cohesiveness and working together and doing all those things. Yet even back in the 80s, there were, many countries scouting was already, co-ed.
So now the Cub Scouts and Scouts BSA, the Boy Scouts, have kind of caught up with the rest of scouting in being at least potentially co-ed.
Once I kind of started to, think about it in those terms, it really changed my thought process too. So, because the troop that I grew up in was of course it was all boys. I was in Scouts in the 90s. So even as a young adult, I still very much felt like, Boy Scouts is for boys only, no girls allowed type of thing. Girls can go do Girl Scouts. But it wasn't until I kind of started to learn about the facts and learn about these other programs that's under that Boy Scouts of America umbrella, that I kind of started to kind of change my thought process on the whole thing. So,
yeah. So just to be clear, Girl Scouts is not a part of Scouting America. It's not any of the subsets or anything else.
Correct. Yeah. So Girl Scouts is their own entity that's, and they actually tried to sue BSA for allowing girls to participate because they were concerned that they were going to draw off a bunch of girls from the Girl Scout program. So, but yeah, so they're their own thing. They're the ones that are out selling cookies, and but they kind of primarily focus on civics and activism and those types of things. And so, but yeah, that's a separate deal. So
why would a girl want to join Scouts BSA?
It's all a preference of what the family does, what the leaders, want their kids to grow up in. The scouting program has always been focused on, outdoor adventure, learning leadership skills through an outdoor program. And that's what, the BSA has to offer. And not every girl wants to learn how to sell cookies, or sew or do crafts. Like there's plenty of girls out there who want to go out there and get dirty and, go hiking in the rain and camping and doing all those fun things too. So, so it's just, it opens up avenues for girls who may not want to do Girl Scouts. So.
Okay, so as far as the troops go, does this change mean that like Boy Scout troops just have to accept girls now and that's it?
Absolutely not. Yeah, so that's a good question. So, and that's a common misconception is that, because, for the last 5-6 years, the national has been coming out with all these rules like, oh, well, this is allowed and then that's allowed and then that's allowed. Well, there's a difference between, allowing those things to take place versus forcing units to do it. So it's really a personal preference on the parent and what they want out of the program. There are units that are fully integrated co-ed, but our units are not co-ed, and because we're kind of like the traditional scouting style. So we kind of explored a lot of different options, and we actually considered that briefly, or kind of doing a hybrid co-ed type of thing. But at the end of the day, we're like, no, this isn't going to work at all. Yeah, the boys need to stay separate from the girls, so between our two units, the only thing that they share is the meeting space, really. The boys have their own program and the girls have their own program, and they have their own activities and their own outings. Yeah, so everything's completely separate.
Very good. There's been some fake news, I think, reporting now like these Hollywood actors that have always supported the Boy Scouts and now there aren't. It turns out most of that doesn't even seem to be true. But this idea of renaming or rebranding as Scouting America, that's really just making it more accurate, I think, as to what is happening in the scouting program. It has been happening for decades, that this isn't just boys, and so it's kind of silly to have it in the name. Yeah,
exactly. So now that we have girls in the program, again, to be more inclusive, between boys and girls, that's why they kind of changed the name to Scouting America. So
Gotcha.
Yeah. But other than that, you're still getting the same value. You're still getting, the same lessons. But again, it really depends on the unit.
All right, Bob. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right.
All right, I hope you have enjoyed this video on the Boy Scouts, Scouting America. I hope it was informative and entertaining. If it was, why don't you give the video a like and subscribe to Backcountry Pilgrim if you are into hiking, camping, backpacking, and the gear that goes with it. Till next time, I am Doug. This is my daughter. Thanks for watching.